Hello everybody, hello Eswatini, hello world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening and good night, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. We're coming at you live from Bhembe City, the cap city in the kingdom of Eswatini. My name is Thamsanqa Sibanze, aka the courtesy of hip hop, aka my Malcolm ex-boyfriend, aka the stone that the builder refused, aka the Black Superman. And I'm here.
Oh, yes. Yes.
With none other
Thank
than.
you. Is this my cue?
This is your cue.
Okay, this is my cue. Hello, everybody, and welcome. You are with The Connect. Yes, we are here in the beautiful Bhembe City. Right?
Yeah.
That's right, the capital city of Eswatini. Thank you for joining us. You will remember we're on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube, so please sign in, sign on, and share. Tell the people that this is what we're talking about today. As you know, the theme is reimagining education. So if you have teenagers or young people in the home, let them join in. They're all on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, right?
Absolutely.
So this should be quite easy for them. Let them join in. We really want to have a very rich and engaging conversation with you today. Okay.
That's right, Shelly. We do want to hear your perspective. So please share with us your comments, your queries, and your questions on the comment section below. Because this is not just about us here in the studio. This is a collective effort, and we're inviting everybody to join us here this evening. Reimagining education. Where are we? Where are we going, or where would we like to go? And that's pretty much the conversation that we want to have right now. Let's get real with it. Welcome to Kim Duplessis. She's already in the building, and we see you. Welcome, and just make sure that you, if you can, host a watch party. If you can, go on YouTube. The picture quality there is actually usually better if you're on Facebook. But otherwise, we're just inviting everybody, wherever you are, however you can join us, please come through and let's have this here discussion, because we're trying to build this nation, this continent, this world that we live in.
Absolutely. But as you know, we're never alone. Obviously, behind the scenes, you know, all the glitz and glamour that you, well, sort of, that you see, it doesn't come naturally. But there's a whole team that helps us set this all up. So as you know, there is DTTV, who's very generously also sponsoring this episode for us of The Connect. We have also the dream team behind the scene, includes Linda Rego and the lovely Pinky Nyandoro. So thank you to our team behind the scenes that you often don't get to see, but we like to sneak some little shots, and we'll hopefully share that with you. Okay, and then obviously in the room, let's see, we have some guests. Yes, of course, we're not talking about education all ourselves, because we don't know everything, as you know. There are many perspectives, diversity of opinions and ideas that we want to bring to the fore, you included. So please remember to share with us. So with us today we have, and on the far end, we have Thulani. Hello, Thulani. Hi. Welcome to The Connect. Thank you so much. Tizie, thank you very much for agreeing and accepting our invitation to be here with us. And right next to me here is Mduduzi. We're going to tell you a little bit more about your lives. Thank you, Mduduzi, for joining us on this panel today. So we'll tell you a little bit more about our guests later on, but you know we like to start the conversation just talking generally about what's going on in your lives, what maybe has tweaked your interest, what have you noticed, whether it's in the paper, current affairs, on the news, what's going on. So yeah, let's start with you, Thulani. Anything that you've been watching that has come to your attention, just generally what's happening in the world at the moment? There's a lot of news, lots going on.
Thank you so much. Besides COVID, there is nothing. We have been trying to understand the new normal. First of all, we were told to run away from this monster, stay at home, don't come out, make sure you wash your hands, and etc. Now we are trying to adjust, coming back to society. With all the threats that we have been told, we are trying to adjust and find ourselves and find our purpose and try to make a meaning of this new life. Yeah. So basically, for me, that has been what is happening in my life. Yeah. Trying to find myself at work, school, education, my life at home, trying to tell everyone close to me how to keep safe. I think basically that's that. Yeah.
Right in there with the COVID space. Right, Tizie, share with us a little bit what's your day-to-day looking like at the moment?
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, having to stay indoors for as long as we've had to has been very different. Missing family members, I mean, talking on the phone is not the same as seeing.
Of course.
But also what's interesting for me and sad is that little kiddos are not able to play together. Yeah? So we've gone from that space where little kids used to just go and play and they'd come back at the end of the day to when we found toddlers sitting watching TV and we said, no, 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 you should go out more, go and play with others. And now COVID says, stay indoors.
That has really changed.
Yeah.
Sending the kids out for fresh air and sunshine, and now we don't know, stay
No,
inside.
no, no.
It's all very, very confusing.
Yeah.
They're looking at us like, are you sure you know what you're
What
doing?
you're yeah.
Mom, Dad, do you have a handle on this parenting thing?
Yeah.
Make up your mind.
Make up your mind. Last
Yeah.
week was go outside, this week is
Stay
stay inside.
inside.
I'm very confused. I know, but it is a confusing time. Right?
Yeah.
And we're all sort of trying to keep up with it, although it's very difficult. Mduduzi, what's your life and space every day today looking like?
Basically, it's trying to help students to learn. Because teaching is what we do, but it's getting more difficult. We're trying out different solutions.
Sure.
It's not going to be one solution that's going to fit everything. We have different kinds of kids. We have different ages of kids. Some people cannot exactly do this whole distance education thing, this online thing. So probably we have to come up with hybrids of solutions. Right. But that's what we've been doing so far with all of this. I'm missing the kids because they're not at school, and as teachers we find ourselves also having to do things differently. I know that some people say, teachers, you know, you're getting paid without working. But I know many teachers out there are also trying to find solutions. They're trying to find different ways of doing and giving to students the same or a better quality of education, or as best of an education as they can under the circumstances.
Under the circumstances, and those are not easy, right?
Not at all.
I was reading the news about our neighbors, and it looks like the unions are forcing the schools to close, and it's dividing people. Should schools stay open? Should they be closed? So everybody's watching with bated breath to see how that goes. It's a very difficult one to talk about in this day and age, because we're facing health or COVID, but there's also welfare or well-being, right? Yes. And the world does need to continue. We do need to somehow be better equipped for this, but where it goes, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting and very tricky because, like you're saying, on the one end, there is that kids need to go back to school, but then there's the health and welfare side that says, you know what, for their safety, let's keep them at home. So it's just going to be, I say this is probably the best and the worst time to be a leader, because whatever decision you make might actually save lives or actually kill people. So it's definitely a tricky time for somebody to be a leader in the driver's seat and making those decisions to say either people go or people stay. But we'll just see how it unfolds. But I think the most important thing, and I think it's something that we spoke about in the early episodes of the Connect, is that for the first time in a very long time, we need everybody. Yes. You know what I mean? Right now, we just cannot rely on the king or on the prime minister or the minister of health or the minister of education. We need everybody's input right now. Like Mduduzi is saying, we're trying out different things, and for us to try out different things, we will need different opinions and different perspectives. So right now, we absolutely need everybody.
That's right.
Absolutely. Okay, well, if you're joining us, we're just looking on the screen to see Ntombi Kayise. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Ace, my friend.
Okay. Thulani's got fans.
Yeah.
With people, it's like, yo.
Ntombi Kayise, just call the other fans into the room. We want to talk to all of you. But thanks for joining. Kim, we see you. Sue, welcome. We're talking about reimagining education. I'm sure you've got an opinion, you've got experience. Come on into the room and share with us. what you're thinking, what you're seeing, what you are experiencing. Okay,
Absolutely.
so I think we can jump right in, but we
Yeah.
want to be able to let you know a little bit, apart from the lovely faces that are here, we've got years and years of experience, we've got
yeah.
some real story, and that's what's going to really sort of enrich in our discussions for today.
Absolutely.
So yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, like we say every time here on The Connect, that Shelly and I are just the facilitators. We don't claim to know everything. Ours is just to sort of like lead the conversation, ask the questions that will spark the conversation. And in the building here today, because we are talking about reimagining education, we've got some education experts. Thulani Lushaba, aka Mr. Ace, as we have just now learned.
That's your AKA now.
Yeah, put it up there.
Yeah, you know, to just like, you know, be like everybody else and stay in one place.
Stay put. Well, like Thulani, I'm really passionate about education.
Your passion moves you.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Literally.
And,
Oh, man, I
yeah.
love it. I love it. Yeah.
And I started off as a teacher. And actually, my goal in life was to be the best teacher I could be. Because I wanted kids to have a good experience in school.
Okay.
But from there, went on to train teachers,
Oh, yeah.
which was even more interesting.
Yeah.
And then got into UNICEF a little bit by accident, but got in. And I guess I found my space because UNICEF really focuses on the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah? So I maintained my education space, but with slightly different angle.
All right.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Beautiful stuff. And I just want to double click on something here. So you were part of, you contributed to the rebuilding of the education system in South Sudan. Post the conflict.
Yeah.
And I think we're actually in a space right now where we really need a mind like yours that can actually trigger us or lead us in the right direction when it comes to rebuilding an education system. Can you just tell us a little bit about that experience and specifically your role?
Okay. So I was leading a team in UNICEF that was supporting the Ministry of Education to rebuild the sector. South Sudan has very low human development indicators, as you would know.
Yeah.
Conflict affected. But then if you're building the system, so getting kids into school where they find teachers that can actually facilitate learning and have the ministry provide the support to those schools and teachers. So that's what we're doing. When I arrived, actually, South Sudan was just beginning to develop a new curriculum.
All right.
So we worked on a new curriculum for an independent South Sudan, which was really interesting, working with all the partners and the educators in the country.
That's one for the books.
Yo.
Yeah.
Man, like
Beautiful.
this building is buzzing today, you know? And then finally we have my big brother, Mduduzi Bhembe. I know him because we were at St. Mark's High School together, but he was a senior. He was actually my prefect in high school.
Was he naughty? Did you punish him?
A lot. He also went to the university University of Eswatini, studied agricultural education until 2016. Also studied in Montessori education with the Center of Guided Montessori Studies in the US. You've worked a little bit in the DPM's office as well. And you taught at MDS, SOS Mshengu High, and then you're currently with Lilima Montessori High in Mbabane. But you're also sort of just like a bit of a mover, raised in Mbabane, lived in Lobamba, Ezulwini, in Zimpofu, and your family hails from Simbuyeni, Gamgoma. You're sort of just like a all-rounder as well. My man, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for your time. But I think we're also very interested in a story that you shared about what made you move from the public education space, in terms of the public school education space, to Montessori.
Thank you. I think most of it was realizing that wanting to be a teacher from a very young age,
Sure.
I always wanted to be a teacher. My teachers used to say, no, don't, you know. One chemistry teacher, Mr. Selapa, who used to say, hey, who amongst you wants to be a teacher? And I said, I want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I think I was the only one who raised my hand in class.
Yeah.
He said, I tell you now, don't. And I said, yeah, but there's nothing else I want more. I had a very low opinion of adults. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
And so I thought, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to do something for children because it felt to me like no one was doing anything for children.
Okay.
So eventually I got into the whole public education space.
All right.
And unfortunately, one of my first tasks was to beat children for speaking their mother tongue.
Wow.
And that for me sort of, it gave me a shock. Is this going to be my job?
Right.
Is this what being a teacher means? And after a while, going through the motions, I eventually thought to myself, you know, there has to be a better way
Yeah.
of teaching. There has to be a better way of bringing, and I had a background in Baha'i Center.
All right.
I was raised partly as a Baha'i,
Okay.
but that sort of changed over time. But that kind of background, that kind of understanding of what a child is, a child for me still is this mine of wealth that has, I don't know what, it might be diamonds, it might be gold, it might be silver, it might be something valuable.
Sure.
That you have to draw out of the child instead of filling the child with stuff of your own.
Yeah.
So with teaching, normally we sort of come with this prepared curriculum and we say to the child, you are empty and we are going to give you something that's going to prepare you for life. And I started looking around and thought to myself, no, something is wrong with the formula. Something must be wrong because we are coming out of school and we are not, it's like the saying that someone says, you know, they told us education was the key to success, but they changed the padlock. So it looked to me like, hey, you know, there are people who are learning all sorts of things. We are learning English, we are learning Siswati, we are learning all sorts of things. We don't become poets. We are learning agriculture, but we are not becoming farmers. We are learning all these things. Something must be wrong.
Okay.
And I know that what I'm doing here is probably also going to become meaningless after some time because I can see things changing all around us. 1997, when I finished school, there were no cell phones. But 5 years later, everyone was using a cell phone.
Yeah.
No one had prepared us for something like that. And I started wondering if education was preparing us for the future. So just when I started having those doubts about this, I found an opportunity, also by accident. I know it's not an accident, really.
Yeah.
So I found a Montessori school that also wanted me, and I've been there ever since.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh man. So like we'll just like dive straight into it. Karen, Mandy, welcome. Steven, how you doing, Big Steve? Yeah, and Mduduzi also brought some of his fans as well. You know, Kim is like, there's nothing else I want to be. I want more than to be a teacher. Mduduzi, you are a legend. Yeah. Karen says, good evening, everyone, from a rather chilly pig speak. Steven says, Mduduzi, big man, great teacher, awesome inspiration for a new generation of leaders. And of course, our leader, Sean Lowe, says, I love the concept of looking for the magic in the child. Wow. Let's basically just go into that right now. Something that you touched on, Mduduzi. You said 97 when you completed high school, there was no cell phone technology, or it wasn't big or prevalent then. 5 years later, almost everyone has got a phone in their pocket, but nobody had prepared us for that. And maybe Tizie, to you, and because you've been with the UNICEF and you've traveled around a bit, I was in Rwanda towards the end of last year, and I was invited by some Eswatini students to a school that I didn't know existed, and it's a university that does not have a curriculum. But what they do is they project. What does it look like Africa is going to be needing in the next 3, 5, 10 years? And then they create a curriculum based on the needs of the next couple of years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So basically, every year they will graduate different kind of professionals.
Yes.
Because what they do is they sit down and project that
Yes.
this is the trend, this is where the world looks like it's going, this is what Africa looks like it will need. And then they basically then create a curriculum per student to build towards that. I don't know if you came across anything of that nature.
No, not really, but I have come across, I mean, a lot of the countries now have what is known as a competency-based curriculum,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yes.
So that learners gain competencies, skills for survival, skills for decision making, livelihoods, and not just only jobs. They should be able to create their own jobs because as we know, there aren't enough jobs
Yeah.
to go around anymore.
Yeah.
And in fact, we don't even know what jobs will be required.
Yeah.
So we need to develop kids with the competencies to be able to fit into a changing environment.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's also what as a country we are currently trying to introduce
Okay.
in grade 1 and 2, because I think sometime there was what in the education space we call the World Bank study, which tried to analyze the current education system
All right.
and try and find out if it prepares us for the future. And one of the things that it finds is that the current education, which was more of
But because we don't know the how, right? COVID is new.
Yeah.
Nobody saw, we may have seen it coming. We saw the wave and we thought, let's see how long it takes to get to Africa. And suddenly it was here and we were on shutdown and all sorts of things. We may not know the how, but it's what do we need to do to make it safe? You say it's a basic human right. Absolutely. I think
Yes.
I would agree. But when that human right is being attacked,
yes,
when there is risk that comes to that human right,
yes,
then I think we almost need to look at it differently.
yes.
And that's where we're in. We're being
Yes.
tested because
Yeah.
we have human lives that are being potentially risked in this area. So I like what you're saying. What is it that we need to do? So based on what maybe you've seen, what has been done, what still needs to be done, what are we talking about?
But basically, I mean, what we're talking about, education should continue. Education cannot wait. We want children to learn,
Yeah.
right? And the school has been the place where children learn. I mean, that's the whole purpose of going to school, to learn. But there are also other things that happen in school.
Yeah.
We know that school is a protective environment.
All right.
Children are protected from child labor, girls from early marriage, from pregnancy, from abuse.
Okay.
So we need schools. Schools have also served us as protective environments,
Yes.
particularly for vulnerable. And then we also know that children are socialized in school.
Yeah.
So there's socio-emotional development that, okay, as society, we've decided that is one of the duties
Yeah.
of the school and teachers to take care of our children, to socialize our children the way we have decided as a society. So that has changed. So in this era, kids cannot go to school because it's not safe. But they still need to learn. So we have to find ways of ensuring that children can learn, can remain safe and protected,
Yes.
can still have that psychosocial support.
Yeah.
If not from the home, where?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So interestingly, so what we are seeing now is that there's education is very broad.
Yes.
There's the formal education,
Yeah.
where there's a curriculum to follow, and we'll get into that because my son is one who's a bit of an activist. you know, about understanding what does the cross-section of a, you know, of a locust help me with in my life skills. But we also have the idea of, like you say, life skills, socialization, things that maybe are more in the informal sector. There's no real book or manual, but it's things we learn as we interact and as we have discussion and dialogue.
Yeah.
Obviously what's happened now is people being at home has raised the question around there's different types of education. So one has been highly sort of impacted, the going to school part. And for many, we may have realized that we outsourced a lot of our responsibility as parents. And I speak to myself here as well. That, like you say, kids were off at 6 in the morning and we would see them at 4 in the afternoon. The day was done. And hopefully the teachers had done everything. Educated, uplifted, motivated, disciplined, taught them everything we need. And then they came home in a nice little box ready to face the world. What's happening now is as parents, we kind of have had to awaken up to the fact that we have a role to play in this. And where we completely outsourced to the teachers and would phone them to say, hey, my child is not behaving, the teacher would get the call. So that's been a big shift. Mduduzi, what do you say about that? How has that impacted this whole space when we talk education?
I'm going to go back to education itself and what started, I mean, where does it come from? Where do schools come from? I don't know. Feel free to disagree. But from a historic perspective, schooling wasn't something that was always there. Education has always been there. Schooling, no. But education has always been there. And most of the education that was taking place, no matter which country it was in, was taking place more or less in the community, within the community. I like the education that used to happen in this country, in this culture, because it was more like the kind that Montessori proposed, observing the child. You know, you wouldn't even name a child. You wouldn't give a child a name until you had seen the child exhibiting certain behaviors. It would just be called a child, and all of that. But once the child had exhibited certain behaviors, then the child would be named according to what the child was already doing. And then the child became this person. You had all these spaces at home for the child to manipulate. There was the cattle kraal, there were the goats there was a garden, there were kitchens, there was everything. And as you would observe the child manipulating certain objects, you would then say, this one is going to become this one is going to become this. And then they would get all of the training that they were going to, that they were ever going to get. They would get that training from
something that looked like
professionals.
it was already a natural skill, or something that they're already leaning towards.
A natural bent towards that kind of thing. And so within the community, the child became a valuable member of society because he grew up to become this person who could do this and do that. And I think this provides us with an opportunity to get some of those aspects into the education space. It gives us the opportunity to educate children in the context of their own cultures. It gives us the opportunity to say, we are not all going to do European history and speak only English or only French in some countries and all of that. It gives us an opportunity to say, let us go back and look at what can bring value to communities. And once you bring value to communities, then you can start, say, maybe designing particular kinds of schools or environments. We have lots of infrastructure that we can repurpose. We have classrooms that can be used for something else, or we have teachers who can learn how to teach differently. They're the best people to teach how to teach differently, rather than starting from scratch and saying we need new people that we're going to. You know, the fact that we are doing competency-based education is recognition of the fact that there's something wrong with the education. Now, the ones who are not doing competency-based education, unfortunately, are still following the old system that we are correcting. But this COVID-19 situation is giving us an opportunity to say, they can also start doing things like projects at home. You can send them to do projects. Don't just keep on giving them information. We can change the curriculum to suit the current condition and say, we are now training you to become the person that you can become. Instead of saying, learn this, learn that, so that you can memorize it in an examination. Funny thing about an examination is that it trains you to forget. Because you cannot pass the next paper until you've forgotten everything else that you've just written. And so you get out of school having forgotten everything.
So Mduduzi, you touched on that, and I want to just segue in, courtesy, I'll trust that you'll just capture what.
So when we are talking about education for all, we are talking about, previously when we were, because now we are at home. It's not only people with disability now which are at home. We are all now at home. So we have to seriously think now. I think one of the things that we must look at this COVID, we must look at it as an opportunity to try and make an introspection of what we were doing before in terms of education, because many children with disability did want to go to class, but because of our current school engagement, our current school setup, they were not in class. So those are the things that need to change in terms of our education system. And also the things that we have said about empowering children with competencies instead of just making them to be...
regurgitating.
Yes, because unfortunately, when we advocate some of this change, parents do not understand, because what they like to see is maybe their children speaking good English.
Getting an A,
getting
A+,
an
first class, second class, those things matter. They're very important.
And because, one time we were in a meeting and we were discussing with teachers about the importance of education, and one of the things we were suggesting in terms of competency based, they were saying, when we will have time to finish the syllabus, but it is not, education is not about finishing a syllabus, but it's making sure that learners acquire a set of skills. So
I like that. But it's a difficult river to row, right? Because like you say, there's so many different beliefs and perceptions about it all. But I love what you said. It's kind of this, also, can we really speak education when we're leaving people behind? Is it education for all when we've got huge sectors of populations that are just forgotten? And we seem to not even worry. We just keep mowing on and pretending that, we won't shed too much light there. So Tizie, I know you gave us this. I don't know if this is a good time to actually bring this in, but could you talk to us a little bit about this, this illustration? So we're going to ask DT, please, if you wouldn't mind sharing for the purposes of all of us. Ladies and gents, we do see your comments, and please allow us to come back to them just after we speak to this.
But I mean, just something, an observation, Shelly. I like what's going on in the comment section. People are actually having the discussion amongst themselves. So that's great, because we won't be able to obviously read every comment, but we just love the fact that there's already so much building and sharing that's going on in the comment section. So keep that up. We appreciate that very much.
So Daniel, have you got this image up for our viewers to see? Thank you very much.
Okay, as Thulani was saying, that it's education for all. So especially with the Sustainable Development Goals, that we're all the communities of the world are working towards education for everyone and leave no one behind. So if you look at that diagram, okay, that picture, you've got 3 groups of people, okay? And when we talk equality, mainly when we provide services, we say we're providing services for everyone, right? And we're giving 100 Rand for everyone, okay? There's a school for everyone, or everyone, well, they're watching a match, right? So the shortest person has got the same resources as the tallest person. What does that do? The one who could already see is even more advantaged. The one who was disadvantaged is still disadvantaged. Nothing, very little has changed for them.
So they still received access to education.
They've received access, yes, to education, but they're coming to school hungry. They don't have books, but you've said they can come to school, so they come like everybody else. Equity says you look at what I need and provide it so that I can benefit from education. So if I'm hungry, a nutritious meal at school, books,
Yeah.
so I can read and write and engage and learn. Uniform is not compulsory.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that I can get in. The one who already has resources doesn't need anything extra.
Yeah.
Okay? They're already getting a meal at home.
Yeah.
They're coming to school ready to learn. Their parents are providing books. So we need to look with an equity lens, not an equality lens. And most of the time we provide equality, we've got a grant. And that grant is 50 Emalang, and it doesn't matter whether the school is 200 kilometers from wherever.
From government.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot that we need to consider.
Yeah.
And I think it's like what you said. It's maybe time that we move away from this one size fits all.
Yeah.
And look specifically
Simply.
at how is the current system serving us, but
Yes.
serving individuals as well, communities,
Yes.
groupings,
Yes.
wherever we are, is it serving us? And this is a very, very, very powerful image.
Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned is around how children were getting a meal at school and how they were being protected or being provided
Yes.
for. That's a very important thing because now with COVID, obviously children were not being able to go to school and get that one meal.
Yes.
And often at home there may not be resources there. So there's a lot that needs to be considered. You know, should schools be providing that level of security to students, and how can we help? Whether it's private sector, public sector, how can we help? Because we realize that it is critical.
It is.
You can't learn on an empty stomach. You can't function. Even if you go to work or you start getting dizzy, and yet we have kids who are walking 3-4 kilometers in the morning to get to school and are expected to sit still in their chairs, not talk and focus on what's being said and be able to regurgitate it. So those are some of the real issues. You touched on uniform. You know, I've heard horror stories of children being sent home because they don't have uniform, being shamed and named and blamed because of uniform. Can we just actually just put this on the table? No, because it's a real serious issue, and it's causing children to really be damaged emotionally around this issue of why has uniform become such an important thing when we say schooling?
Again, it goes back to where education came from, where schooling came from, rather.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about preparing people to follow orders. I know exactly what a teacher's job is. I know what it is. We can say all sorts of things, but our main function is to create obedient employees. It's to create an orderly kind of situation.
Right.
And uniform was one of those things. Be like this because we don't want to go through all of the trouble of addressing your concerns. We don't have time.
Okay.
Because the system is too big.
Yeah. Be the same.
It's too big. Same thing with the grants. You want them to be uniform because it's a big system. You're talking about one government trying to take care of everyone. And no one has the time to take care of individual needs. But what you should rather do is, there's a story that was told about how the internet was sped up by thinking in terms of processors. One big processor cannot handle all of this stuff.
Right.
But 65,000 or so small processors
Right.
were able to do that. And it's like saying you're getting, instead of one large ox trying to pull 2 tons, get 65,000 small chickens. They'll do the job better. If you make smaller cogs in the machine, smaller schools in communities, imagine a child who, I used to know a child who, it wasn't just one child because they came from a community that was far away. They used to jog to school, jog for 2 hours, jogging to school. They'd arrive late. The uniform was also in a particular state.
Well, yes.
Of course.
And no one had the time to deal with what's your particular problem. What's your particular problem? If you took the time to do that, it would drain you, it would drain everyone because you're trying to take care of 400 students. Sometimes it's 7, and the schools are getting bigger and bigger. Our school used to have 720 kids. Now it's 1,200 and something. The bigger it gets, the more uniformity you need as an administrator because you cannot take care of everyone.
Yeah.
But if they were smaller and you had more people taking care of those people, then you would have the capacity
Be more
to understand
personalized.
each
Yeah.
child. If you had a small school of 30 kids close to where they live, you could be able to actually even know exactly where they came from. And you'd understand their particular problems and understand that they're not the same.
So that's very futuristic, but I like what you're saying. It gives us an idea of where we need to go.
Yeah.
We've obviously discussed a lot of the sort of current reality challenges we've got. I just want to turn our attention a little bit to the screen and see what is being discussed behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Would you like to go there, Curtis?
So we've got Dudu who says, can the panel also comment on the impact of COVID-19 on the education sector, e.g. the glaring inequality between those who are able to access online learning and
Yeah.
those who can't? Can
Yes.
government bridge that gap?
Okay, that's one of the most contentious issues around online learning.
Sure.
Forgive me.
Or computer, but are they learning?
Yeah.
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 No, it's a
And
very
is there the
important.
support
Yes, exactly.
to help children? Because school provides, an environment where learners can focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know you're going into your science class. You're going to learn biology. So focus for that period of time.
Right.
And the teacher is a facilitator. We know now we want the learners themselves to engage in the learning. But there's always a facilitator somewhere, someone to help along the way. Who's providing that support at home? It has to be mom or dad or whoever the caregiver is. Do they know what to do? We have not engaged with them, the teachers, the educators. The teachers are sending homework and hoping whoever is at home is supporting the child to focus for half an hour or an hour and do it.
And yet potentially at home it's now a high stress situation.
Yeah.
It's
It
like
is.
we
Very
said,
difficult.
parents who are not equipped to be guiders, facilitators in that space. I mean, a parent was sharing with us, they were just looking at grade 3 math and they were like, I'll get back to you on that one. I had to go back and pull out my school books for long division. I mean, and you forget, right? And this is what kids are needing help with, but we are ill-equipped. And even parents, in our space, we do a lot of delivery of different interventions within the mind-setting space. When you deliver in a room, and now when we have to doing it via Zoom, it's a very different space.
Different.
The skill needs to be adjusted slightly. And are our teachers actually equipped to go fully online? So it's the parents and the educators that are facing the same sort of challenges. Are we right? It's not just, and I think the question was there, is this government's problem to solve? That's the question.
Definitely.
Not on their own. Not
On their own.
Yeah.
So
Not
they
on
have a
their
part to play.
Yes.
But like you said, there's partnership. We all need to be invited to the table to help put the picture together.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also I do want to make the emphasis that
Yes.
government is supposed to be the one who's setting the pace.
All right.
Putting in
Good
place
leadership.
those policies, strategies, and budgets so that we are able to catch up with the current challenges that we are facing within the education system. We can come in as partners and do so much, but at the end of the day, the the main person responsible for implementation of education in the country is government.
Yeah.
So we are looking upon government to step up, to assist us, to guide us, to give us directions on how we can improve things. And us as partners, we want to come in and support what has already been put in place.
So there you heard it loud and clear.
Yeah. And what you're touching on right now is in line with what Stephen Duplessis is saying. He says, I love the earlier point of tertiary education centers tightly collaborating with business to target what is needed in the marketplace. We have too many degreed young people that cannot find positions. Better still to evoke that entrepreneurial spark in people to start their own businesses and become employers and bigger contributors to our subcontinent's economy.
It's like what we said. So I said, I've got this story. My son keeps asking me, like, why do I have to learn this science, history? Is this relevant for me? I want to know how to fill out a tax return. I want to understand how to do a business plan. These are the skills we want to learn. So he's pushing back, and I'm sure he's got tons and tons of friends that are doing the same.
Yeah.
So when we look at curriculum, are we potentially teaching kids stuff that is not really serving them for the future?
if I may.
Yes, please do.
There's a big difference between jobs and work.
Okay.
Yep.
There's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. There are communities that don't have water. That work needs to be done. There are children that need to eat.
Yeah.
That is work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
But everyone is looking for jobs. And jobs are a bit different from work itself. If everyone was trying to do a little bit of the work, no one, not to say no one exactly, but people wouldn't be looking for jobs so much. If you found something that was lacking in your community and you wanted to solve that problem, helping people to do something.
We have, bachelor's degrees or degrees coming out of university that will serve no purpose. We have a curriculum that kids are saying, please teach me something that is relevant for me. We have work that needs to be done.
Yeah. Also, I just want to add on what you are saying, because also the mistake that we have done in the past, we have tend to glorify white collar jobs at the expense of the other skills that you can acquire through the education system. Even our teachers at school, my school, the emphasis was make sure you pass so that you can go to university.
Yes.
And many of us have made it to university and are looking for jobs, and we can't find jobs. And yet also we need to try and put more emphasis on issues like pre-vocational training in schools.
Yes.
Very few schools in Swaziland have got vocational centers within the schooling system. So basically, there is also another picture. Unfortunately, I didn't know we'll talk about such issues, whereby there is an elephant trying to get a fruit from a tree, and there is a monkey also trying to get the
Same
fruit.
fruit. Yes.
So our education system assumes that all of our children are going to be able to get that fruit. And yet some have got different skills. For instance, the elephant can bring down the tree and do something else. So we have to try and make our education, we must create an education that will unlock all our children's potential. Not everyone is going to the office and going to be Mr. Lushaba there and wait and do such conferences. Some are supposed to be making, for instance, also look at the things that we import from other countries. I think this debate came out strongly just before COVID, whereby China had locked out Swaziland from trade and whatsoever. And then people started realizing, oh, so many things come from China and South Africa and Swaziland. Over 90% of everything we consume, it might be coming from South Africa, this water from South Africa. So if we do not change our education system to be able to try and produce some of these things, we must then again ask ourselves, what are we trying to do with our education system? Should we be preparing more learners for white collar job or giving them skills, pre-vocational? Should we be investing more in making sure that every school has got a woodwork department, has got a metalwork or whatsoever, all those vocational skills that are available so that we can be able to produce? But we have tended to glorify white collar. Maybe those are some of the
jobs
things
that don't exist anymore and are dying very quickly. That's
But also, I
reality.
mean,
yes.
Mduduzi also mentioned, we don't know what children are passionate about.
Yeah.
Teachers don't even explore that. So we just think, okay, I'm the teacher, I'm here to teach maths, this is what I'm going to teach. We don't get to bring out the passion, the interest, enthusiasm in learning from our young people.
Right.
They're just there. So you ask people, why did you go for a humanities degree? Oh, because I qualified for that.
Low-hanging fruit, I need to get
and
a
then
degree.
what are you going to do with it? Oh, I'll have a degree.
Yeah.
What purpose does it serve?
It's the rich dad, poor dad scenario, is it not? Let's go to you, Mduduzi, and then I'd like us, please, if you don't mind, to just interact with our people there and get us all to sort of lean in and respond a bit. But over to you.
I was just going to say something about the pre-vocational education. It was piloted in about 16 schools around the country, 4 per region. And unfortunately, I mean, this was going to be very, very good for the country. Those centers are still there, but the teachers in pre-vocational education are not getting enrollments into the pre-vocational department because, first of all, the pre-vocational setup is now trying to sell something that they are not good at producing. It's like saying if you had a business, you were selling water, and I was selling fish. Now, if you start selling fish, and I've been selling fish for such a long time, you with your water are going to be a new person trying to sell fish. Pre-vocational education is supposed to give you skills.
Yes.
It's supposed to teach you through production.
Yeah.
It's supposed to give you the ability to produce so that you do not learn by sitting
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
chair, because what you practice is what you become good at.
Yeah.
Amen.
We learn by sitting in chairs.
Practice,
Yeah.
practice.
Now,
practice.
when you say to pre-vocational students, come this side, do pre-vocational education, don't worry, you're still going to go to university. You're getting it wrong, because you're not supposed to be sending pre-vocational education students to university. They're supposed to be starting businesses.
Yeah.
There is another system that's very good at getting people into university. Let them do that.
Alright.
We
Yeah.
need
Academic.
nurses, we need doctors, we
Absolutely.
need, but when you do
Engineers,
pre-vocational
yeah.
education, do not do it to get people into university.
Right,
Once you start doing that, you are going to have an inferior product
right.
trying to get into the same space as people who are ready for university.
Yeah.
You are going to have a qualification. What's the point of having a written exam if I can make something like this?
Yeah.
That's a very powerful
But I must
statement
prove
that
it in an
you're saying.
examination situation
Yeah.
to say, yes,
Yeah.
I know how to make a table. It's the tables that I'm supposed to be making. Let them get out of pre-vocational education and let them maybe say foster them. Give them some sort of warehouse where they can learn how to get into business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't let them graduate without a business plan. It doesn't make sense.
But let's not compare them to the academics
Exactly.
and say, because you're not clever, you're going to woodwork.
Thank
It's
you.
not, it's not.
Yeah.
So passing judgment,
Yeah.
judging.
Yeah.
Child.
Different kinds
And
of
yes,
intelligence.
and
Yeah.
classifying. No, absolutely. And having a system that serves right until the end. So as a consumer myself, I need to ask myself, can I then support these young entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the only way they're going to be able to contribute positively to our economy and to raise themselves up and our communities and our society as a whole. So I have a big role to play there. So we as consumers also need to be aware. We need to be able to lean in as individuals.
Yeah.
Please, if we could turn our attention to the screen and just share some of the ideas and invite perhaps one of us to just comment on them as we move forward. Okay, let's start at the top. Zine, exam system is punishing on the self-esteem of those who are not built to memorize all that theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially what we're testing is how you can hold on to information. How long can you do that before you need to spill it out, and then after that, if you ask a question, you probably won't even get an answer to that question. Right, Stephen, love the concept of empowering competencies rather than completing the syllabus. Yes, we spoke about that. Eh? Replying to Zine, Kim says, I agree. Yes, we agree with you too, Zine. Okay, to Tizie, love the concept of creating an education system around the individual.
Yes.
So I think that's giving us a big clue of the big shift that perhaps needs to happen here. Let's go back and identify what are the strengths and giftings that we have as individuals, and then, like Mduduzi says, mine that to get to greatness.
Yeah.
Technology has the potential to be a great
Only by educating the mind. You educate the mind, the heart, you also must educate the hands. If my mind is not here, my hands are here, this is what you're going to see.
Okay.
I'm not going to be doing anything because I'm forced to think either about the future or about the past or about a different place.
Okay.
So my hands, my body is here, but my mind is not here. The same thing is going to happen no matter which school you pick, until we have places that can teach us to focus the mind on what the hands can touch.
Yeah.
Then you have something that you can produce. We don't know how to make things. We use things other people are making. We will never, ever be able to catch up to those people. There are many other things that are also hidden in it that I'm not sure if I should even say it, but maybe I should. There's another catch. Whenever you think about getting rich, for instance, every child's dream, Okay? You don't want to lack things. You want to have abundance in your life. But most of that is in terms of money, in terms of this and that.
Material, yeah.
When you call yourself a millionaire in this country, how many millions are we talking about? Are you talking about the same number of millions that are spoken of by an American child? In America, a person who's fighting to get $1 million is actually fighting to get 18 million emalangeni.
Okay.
You are fighting for 1 million emalangeni.
Okay.
Exactly when are you ever going to put in enough effort, do the right things, get the right ideas to catch up to people who are determining what curriculum you're supposed to be teaching in schools? They will continue to control what is being taught in other countries, not to single out a particular country, but when I keep on saying where education came from, it's an elitist thing.
Yeah.
It was given to, it's like there's an education for whatever purpose you're going to serve. You cannot say you're going to give, realistically, you cannot give the same education to rulers of countries that you're going to give to workers. You cannot give them the same kind of education because those are two different things. Ruling and working.
Putting notes on the blackboard that they copy. When do they get to have experiential learning?
Yeah.
And think about the fact that when you come out of university, the first schools that you're going to be sent to are always in the rural areas. They don't send new teachers, young teachers, inexperienced teachers to urban areas. Those are usually filled with the experienced teachers, those who know what they're doing already. And the new ones are taken to rural areas.
Yeah, I think we also have to try and address this problem, which is very serious within our education system. For instance, we have seen how other countries have tried to address this. For instance, something like hardship allowance for teachers in rural areas, so that they earn more than the teacher who is in the urban area. Unfortunately for Swaziland is a very small country. Anyone who could be told you will earn more when you go to the rural area, I know I will come back on Friday. Probably we'll see a lot of these teachers who are well-trained, willing to go to the rural areas because there's an incentive of going to the rural areas.
We lost very, very good teachers in the rural areas because they would not use pit latrines. And everyone was using
the infrastructure there is not
teachers,
good.
Sure.
There is no housing. Some are staying at Babe Dlamine's home. So even though they're educated, they're following Babe Dlamine's rules. If Babe Dlamine say you can't come back here at after 6 p.m., so that's what they have to follow. So that's not how we want our educators to live under.
But maybe in this era, the COVID era, teachers would teach in their communities.
That's a very good one. And I think, and very sadly, we've had such a good time, and we've got a big message here telling us that we need to wrap up this conversation. We don't want to wrap up. We need to talk more. I can see your comments there. I think we need to have a part 2 of this. We always come and realize that there's so much we need to talk about. But if I can, just for us to round off this particular discussion, I know we're going to come back and talk about it, but just for this session, we spoke about reimagining education. So I'd ask each of you, please, if there's one thing that we could share tonight that would really be, this is what we need to think about for us to move to the next level, that would really add value, that would be able to provide us with the shift we need in the education system, who would it be? And I'm hoping that the powers that be are also listening to this. What would that be, Thulani, for you? We're talking about reimagining. What does the future look like for education? What needs to happen for us to really start to reimagine it?
I think the future of education must be a more inclusive education system. When I talk about an inclusive education system, I mean all of these voices in this table and those in the rural areas and women, people with disability must be included in this discussion about the future of education. Not just to be included, but also their voices must be heard. There are so many things that different stakeholders have to say about education, that can assist all. We have just imagine just right here.
Yes.
We have talked about so many
So
things,
many things,
that can improve our
absolutely.
education system.
Inclusivity.
So
yeah.
for me, inclusivity.
Inclusivity, okay, education for all, and when we say all, we really mean all. Thank you, Thulani.
Yes.
Very briefly.
And when
from
we
you,
say it's inclusive, we're a small country. We need to know what the challenges are for different sectors,
Yeah.
for different socio-economic groups.
Yeah.
We cannot say we're providing online learning
Yeah.
and TV and radio and be happy about it.
Yeah.
Because we don't know which children are not getting access.
Yeah.
We also need, we're going back to basics now. Families who can support the education of their children.
Right.
If you cannot go anywhere and you're stuck at home, parent, you should be able to provide support in any community. So we need partners. We need to work together as communities and as the education community help parents and caregivers to understand what their new role
Right. Okay.
is going
I
to
like
be.
that. Yeah, looking at new skills, how we can support, lean in, and provide, a better environment. Mduduzi, your closing remarks. What do we need to do?
Again, both inclusivity and cooperation, as well as recognizing opportunities, because there are teachers in every community. This is a good opportunity for teachers to start their own businesses. Businesses they know a lot about, education businesses. They can start small schools, because that is where we are going to go. Even before COVID-19, there were people in other countries already implementing things like these. It's not just something new, but think about it, because if you don't move that way, you're going to find yourself being replaced by robots.
Sure. And that's something that we really need to think very seriously about. Thank you very much for joining us for this discussion. We do need to speak more, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions, for your remarks, for your discussions that have been happening online. Thank you very much for being part of it. There's a lot that can be said. They say you judge the wealth of a country by their health system and by their education system. And those are the two most valuable things in any community or country. We need to look internally and look around us and ask ourselves, is what we have going to serve us into the future? And many a times we may say no. Is it out to the government to find all the solutions? It's up to you and me too. We all need to play a part. So yes, we need private sector will, we need political will, and we need those who we are thinking for the future to also have a voice in this. So all the young people behind the scene, their voices need to be heard. And often that's not easy. We often want to shush that voice because it's very loud and we are not equipped to face it. But the question is this going to get us where we need to go? And in most cases, the answer to that will be no. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for joining us.
Our feature for the day.
Our feature for the day, as you know, we always support local business, coming to Mduduzi's point. Those teachers also will be able to showcase what they are doing. But in the meantime, we always encourage those who are doing something and have discovered a new skill and a talent to share with us what they're doing. And often what it has translated in is into small business. So today, and our panel will be enjoying it with us, as well as our dream team behind the scene, we have Brito's Decadent Bites, who have very generously supplied us with some deliciousness that we will be sharing after this. So Brito's was founded in 2017. It is a coffee shop that supplies special occasion cakes, cupcakes, and all kinds of desserts and meals of all different flavors and themes. They serve breakfast, brunch, and lunch menu to suit every customer's cravings. Your car washed by one of the best and most professional car washers in town while you wait. There you go. Hey, add value. Keep going, keep going.
Portfolio.
You're specifying. Where are you based? At Malahleka Complex in Ingwane Park, opposite OK Foods in Manzini. So if you want to get hold of them, we will be sharing all their details with you. Please support local. Like I said in my recent post, supporting local business is an action word. It's not just a hashtag. Okay, so thank you very much, Brito's. And to those of you in the Manzini area or passing through Manzini, please go in and support Brito's Decadent Bites. To end with our show this evening, we have a little treat for you. It is not by chance that we have the courtesy of hip-hop in our midst. And once again, he will close with a spoken word.
The irony. Right now, there is a kid finishing parents' evening in a heated discussion with his mother saying, "Why do I have to study subjects that I will never ever use in my life?" And she will look at him blank-eyed, stifle a sigh, think for a second, and then lie. She will say something along the lines of, "You know, to get a good job, you need a good degree, and these subjects will help you get a good degree. I never had this opportunity when I was younger." And he will reply, "But you were a lot younger a long time ago, weren't you, Mom?" And she won't respond, though what he implies makes perfect sense, that society's needs have changed since she was 16. But she will ignore him, grip his hand, take him to the car. But what she doesn't know is that she didn't ignore him just to shut him up. She didn't lie because they were just returning from a parents' evening and an argument in the hallway would look bad on her resume. She won't lie because she just spent the last 1 hour convincing teachers that she will ensure that her son studies more at home. She will lie because she does not know any better herself. Although her whole adult life she has never used or applied Pythagoras' theorem, pathetic fallacy, and still does not know the value of x. Her son, who has one of the sharpest minds in the school, has been told that he's hyperactive, easily destructive, and wayward. Students, how many equations, subjects, and dates did you memorize just before an exam never to use again? How many A grades did you get, which were never asked for when you applied for the job? How many times have you remembered something 5 minutes before the teacher said stop writing, only to receive your results 1 month later to realize that you were 1 mark off the top grade? Does that mean remembering 5 minutes earlier would have made you more qualified for the job? Well, on the application form, you would have. We all have different abilities, thought processes, experiences, and genes. So why is a class full of individuals tested by the same means? So does that mean I am dumb just because I couldn't do a couple of sums? And if this issue is not addressed properly, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every school has the audacity to say they have equality. The irony. Exams are society's method of telling you what you are worth. But you can't let society tell you what you are, because it's the same society that tells you that abortion is wrong and then looks down on teenage pregnancy. The same society that sells products of natural hair, complexion, with a model in the box, half photoshopped, and has fake lashes and hair extensions. Pastors that preach charity and own private jets. Imams that preach against greed and yet they are fat. The irony. Governments that preach peace but endorse wars. The irony. They put such an importance on higher education and then they take away our scholarships. I believe Ms. Jefferson, when she took me to the office and said my exams would be imperative to my success, because we were taught to always follow when Ms. Jefferson led. But then I took Jefferson out of the equation and I learned to think for myself, and I realized that we were always taught to follow when Miss led. The irony.